Hey Amarillo, I'm Skylar Gallup, and you're listening to Hey Amarillo, the interview podcast featuring some of the most interesting people and stories of Amarillo, Texas. We record every week at Amarillo College's Innovation Outpost. The IO supports education, workforce development, and industry growth by inspiring and facilitating innovation in the Texas Panhandle. Today's guest is Gary Pitner. Gary hung his hat on a more than 40-year career working to solve problems and future plan in the Panhandle of Texas by bringing people together to do the work. From that, he brings a sharp eye on this place where we live and work, its blessings and its flaws, and a story or two about our shared history. Here's Gary. Gary Pitner, welcome to the Hey Amarillo podcast.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Happy to have you. We like to start with the beginning, and that's to ask, where are you from? What is your origin?
It all began in a small log cabin. No, it really didn't. I'm a West Texan by birth, born down in Snyder, Texas, down there between Abilene and Lubbock. Lived there for the first 8 years of my life. My father was a musician and a business administrator in Methodist churches as I grew up. And so he was doing that there in Snyder. He hooked up with a young pastor that was an up-and-comer in the Methodist denomination. And that gentleman moved to Pampa to take First Church Pampa's position as their minister. And so we moved to Pampa. Lived there for a couple of years and then on over here to Amarillo in the mid-1960s where my dad was business administrator at Polk Street Methodist Church. And so that's kind of what brought me to Amarillo, but always in West Texas.
It's a good place to be able to say you have always been.
It's a great place. It really is. The Panhandle, the Great High Plains,
that's
so
right.
to speak. My home, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere but right here.
Amen.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you came to Amarillo?
10 years old.
10, okie dokie.
I was 10 years old.
Moved to the big city.
Well, literally, yeah. I thought it was. And we were in Pampa at the time, so we'd come over here occasionally to shop. Mm-hmm. And, here I am at my age. I'm going to show my age right off the bat. It was before Interstate 40 was finished. And so we would drive in from Pampa on Highway 60, which was Amarillo Boulevard, which was still in its glory day at the time. So I, as a 10-year-old kid, I was totally taken by the neon and the lights and the activities. And then you turn left on Polk Street. I remember a particular occasion. Dad turned left on Polk Street and we were headed south on Polk Street, crossed the tracks there, and got into the business district. And it was about 5 o'clock and people were pouring out of the office buildings. The white-collar workers were pouring out of the Santa Fe building and the Fisk building, and the airmen were on the streets, and the neon was still there, and the retail stores were still there. And, I really did think Amarillo was a big place.
That seems very, very stunning.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it made a real impression. And, I think about Polk Street. Mm-hmm. I have spent, and here we are sitting on Polk Street as we do this. I've spent a great deal of my life. I got to thinking about that as I was driving down here on Polk Street. I went to school here at Amarillo High School when this property was part of the Amarillo High School campus.
Oh, I don't know that history.
Yeah, well, we can talk about
Let's
that.
do it. That's what we're here for.
If you like. I went to, my dad worked across the street at the Methodist Church. We went to church there on Sunday morning. My mom worked at Security Federal Savings and Loan, which was at 15th and Polk. My first job at the Planning Commission, we were officed in the Amarillo building at 3rd and Polk. So Polk Street has played a big role in my history. But no, I did. Amarillo High School was, of course, downtown for many, many years. In the early 70s, there was a catastrophic fire. That burned the campus. I was at Stephen F. Austin Junior High at the time, about to become a Sandy when the school burned. In fact, it burned on a Sunday morning.
Wow.
And the fire, it was a boiler in the wintertime that malfunctioned and set the building on fire. It was first detected by one of the custodians across the street at the Baptist church, called in the fire. We, of course, being the good Methodists that we were, and besides that was Dad's job, we were at church across the street at Polk Street Methodist. And we did not get much Sunday schooling done. The kids didn't. We were hanging out the fourth floor windows watching the fire.
Wow.
And
the schoolhouse burned.
The schoolhouse, a major monument in downtown Amarillo, was burning. And in fact, Channel 4 was there to back in the day, the local television stations for free would televise church services on Sunday morning. Channel 4 was across the street to televise the Methodist worship
They were already
service.
there.
And in the day too, you could not set up live, quickly. Their big mobile trucks were out there on Saturday night. They rolled in the big studio cameras on Saturday night, so they were set up to televise the service on Sunday morning. I could go into excruciating detail because of my weird interest in television. I could tell you they were RCA, TK, 10 black and white cameras, but that's beside the point. They rolled those studio cameras out the front door of the church and televised the fire.
Man, that's actually, obviously very unfortunate for the fire, but that's like very lucky.
It was like
for,
very
for the
lucky
news stations to just kind of like
to
turn the cameras.
Kind of have that live scoop there.
Yeah, for
sure. I remember the student body. Of course, the entire community congregated around that fire. You could see smoke forever.
Yeah.
And the students were they were running in and out of that building. Things
Really?
we wouldn't let people do today. Running in and out of that building, taking trophies, taking records. There's a grand art collection that existed in that building that they saved. It's still a collection out of the current Amarillo High School.
Wow.
And so we went to school in what was left of the old school and the two churches downtown, the Baptist church and the Methodist church. And then my claim to fame is I was in the first graduating class from what I call the new Amarillo High School, which is now over 50 years old.
That is a cool claim to fame.
Southwest Amarillo.
Yeah. Nice. So what did you do after high school?
Well, college was next. AC was next. Had an interest in radio television to begin with.
Sure.
Did not last too long. I have to admit, I decided maybe I could make a little bit more money doing something else.
Well, you're smarter than some of us. It just took me a while to understand that.
Maybe not, because I took on public administration, which is another career path that you're not going to get rich in. So 2 years at AC, and then on to what was then West Texas State University, now West Texas A&M University, and found my niche in public administration.
Okay.
A mentor of mine was one of my college professors, a gentleman by the name of J. Pat Stevens. We lost J. Pat a couple of years ago. J. Pat was a political science professor. Public administration program was his program, and he cranked out young public administrators to go to work primarily in the city management profession. But I was walking down the halls of WT one afternoon. Pat knew I needed a part-time job of some sort. And he says, Gary, I think there might be an internship available to you that would pay you a little bit, and I'll give you 6 hours of credit. Go down and see George Louder, who is the executive director of the Panhandle Regional Planning Commission. And so, great, I'll do that. So I went to see George at the Amarillo building. He had coffee. I had a Dr. Pepper in the little restaurant it wasn't in the basement. It was on the first floor of the Amarillo building.
On Polk Street again?
On Polk Street again. On Polk Street again. And by the end of that conversation, he had offered me an internship at the Planning Commission. That would have been in 1977.
Okay.
And I stayed for 40 years thereafter.
So for people that aren't familiar with the work of the PRPC, explain its role and kind of like where it sits in governance and workforce and all of the things.
Sure, yeah, kind of hidden back there as far as the general public is concerned. The Panhandle Regional Planning Commission is a voluntary association of the local governments. We discovered, in the state of Texas, in fact, discovered back in the 60s, as the state was becoming more complex, the population was booming, things were becoming more complicated as far as the problems, issues, needs, and concerns that we were facing. And there was a recognition that there was a real opportunity to do a better job of meeting the needs of Texans, particularly from the local government perspective, if our local governments had a vehicle to work together regionally. And share resources and address mutual problems and needs and concerns. And that there was state legislation that was passed in the 1960s that allowed local governments to voluntarily, if they so chose to do so, to come together and create these regional organizations. And the PRPC, the Panhandle Regional Planning Commission, was created in 1969. And I didn't get there until 1977. I can't claim to have been there for the entirety of the beginnings, but for a good part. Regional cooperation is uniquely important to those of us that call the Texas Panhandle home. We're isolated. Not always bad, but we're isolated. We're a long way from what most people in this country would consider a major city, Dallas or Denver. There aren't too many of us. There are only 400,000 plus people in the Texas Panhandle. There are well more than twice that number of people in any single Harris County Commissioner precinct. So there are reasons for us to work together. We share institutional resources, like this institution.
That's right.
West Texas A&M University. We share natural resources, things like the Ogallala Aquifer. And we share some commonality in terms of the people and the notions that we share. We're a conservative lot. Some of us call ourselves Democrats, others Republicans, but if you peel those labels away, we're still a conservative lot. Family values are important to us. So all those things come together and weave into kind of the special place that we call the Texas Panhandle. And that regional cooperation piece is something that we latched on to early and have taken really advantage of historically.
I think in addition to the way that you've described sort of like, our scarcity in numbers, sometimes scarcity in resources, and yet the outputs of our area greatly impact some of those very, very densely populated Harris County precincts.
Exactly.
It's important what we're doing up
exactly. Here. Ag and oil and gas and, the foundational pieces of our economy that caused the Panhandle to be here make huge contributions, not just to the state of Texas, but to the nation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so you were with the PRPC for 40 years.
Yeah, and then they finally ran me off. I've been there long enough, time to go.
What are some of the biggest issues that you all maybe had identified as early as the early 70s that were just kind of like through lines of the importance of that sort of regional focus and working together in that way?
Well, when I went to work for the Planning Commission, I thought, well, when I became the executive director in 1985, I think it was, am I going to be able to continue to identify things that we can do together that really need to be done? But at the end of the day, we never had any problem identifying things that we could do collectively. Just some examples over the years. The Regional Emergency Medical Services System that exists in the Texas Panhandle today was a product of the work of the Planning Commission. The training of police officers through our Regional Law Enforcement Training Academy, now at Amarillo College, we gave birth to that outfit back in the 60s. And there's still a financial relationship between Amarillo College and the Regional Planning Commission for peace officer training in the Texas Panhandle.
And I'm making an assumption that was born of individual police departments not having the resources to do some training, and so pooling together those regions.
And it was born with the maturing of the law enforcement profession. It's hard for us to believe these days, but once upon a time, you could be a peace officer when the sheriff or the chief says, here's your badge, here's your gun, there's your car, go out and do what's right.
Well, they did it in Tombstone.
And yeah. I mean, we have a history of doing that, but we were beginning to get a little bit more sophisticated at that time in terms of requirements and credentialing for peace officers. So that led to other things like the Bridge, the Children's Advocacy Center, was a grant-funded program of the Planning Commission that seeded that program. Police school liaison officers in our public schools. That was a grant-funded program that had its beginnings with resources through the Planning Commission. The first medical helicopter in the Texas Panhandle belonged to the Panhandle Regional Planning Commission.
Wow.
And more standard kinds of things, the workforce development programs that we do in the Panhandle, we do collectively as a region. The Panhandle workforce programs that we're familiar with here, senior citizens programs through the Area Agency on Aging, economic development initiatives have been established at the Planning Commission. There's just a long list of things. So we work together in solid, the things that aren't necessarily sexy, solid waste management, municipal, county, doing things better, and providing resources to our communities and professional expertise housed at the Planning Commission to serve the rural communities where they don't have the capacity or the need for a full-time city manager. We did a lot of contract city management work out there. Professional services in terms of seeking people to fill their positions out there. Just a wide range of, it made life interesting at the Planning Commission because we were involved in so many different things. The historic renovation of buildings. The Planning Commission managed the renovation of the Santa Fe office building here in Amarillo for Potter County. Managed the historic renovation of the courthouse down in Donley County, the courthouse in Gray County, the Potter County courthouse. So we've been behind the scenes quietly doing, you may realize that Grandma ate at the Senior Citizen Center, but don't have any realization that the Planning Commission had anything to do with it, or surely that peace officer was trained somewhere, but no connection there. I think our local elected officials know we're there, and the public knows that the Planning Commission, I say we, I will always say we, although I've been away from it.
I think you earned your time.
so many years now. The public is aware when they touch our programs, but they're not aware of kind of the general nature of the organization that served as the incubator for those kind of initiatives.
Well, and I think it's such broad work, that maybe the way that I become aware of the PRPC is that, I'm a history buff and really like the Donley County Courthouse, right?
Right.
But unaware that also a medical helicopter exists because of it, or, a city manager was trained or hired.
Right,
because
or
of
we operate and gave birth to, with the help of the Amarillo Bar Association, our Dispute Resolution Center program, which is primarily mediation. So there are people in that office every day mediating landlord-tenant disputes, consumer-merchant disputes, custody matters, and divorce cases. They'll walk in the office to do that, and that will be their only touch with that organization. So, you're right.
Community impact work, I think, is hard, maybe easy to measure over the course of 45 years in it, but I think hard to measure while you're in it. Did you find your experience to be, what kept you maybe motivated or aware that the work that you were doing was having impact? Not now looking back with a beautiful list of incredibly impactful projects that you guys were successful on, but while you were doing it,
Well, it's kind of like life. It's day by day, step by step, and you try very hard. I tried very hard and tried to instill in my staff the responsibility that we in the public sector carry to be good stewards of public resources and to get the most out of every dollar and to attract dollars into the Panhandle to meet those needs. So, the daily interaction was so satisfying with our local elected officials and the citizenry out there. We had more than, in addition to a 30-member board made up of judges and elected officials and whatnot, more than 300 people on various advisory boards. So I was across the Panhandle all the time, attending city council meetings, and there's a great civility amongst the people of the Panhandle that made it just really enjoyable to do that kind of work. And I'll cite you one example. I think it was my 22nd birthday. I was working with Turkey, Texas on a water well project, trying to get a water well for Turkey. So I was at a city council meeting, and we were working on that project. It happened to be on the 22nd day of August, whatever year that was, which happens to be my birthday. And they had managed to figure out that that was my birthday. They didn't tell me that they knew at the beginning of the meeting. But we got to the end of that meeting, and they said, Gary, we understand today is your birthday, so wait just a minute. And there were a couple of ladies on the council at that time, and they went into another room, and they brought out a birthday cake and sang happy birthday to me, and we ate birthday cake.
Perfect.
And that's the Panhandle, and those are the kind of connections you make, and you feel a real strong connections to do right by those people and take care of business and do your very best for them. And that's what drove me into the office every day and made life enjoyable.
I think because of the nature of, a life's body of work in this area, in the Panhandle specifically, I'm very interested in your insight and perspective on the culture of the people of the Panhandle of Texas. And I don't think that it is from a biased place for me to say that the Panhandle of Texas is a very unique culture, aside even from West Texas, from our neighbors' communities.
Even love
it. Absolutely. Yeah. After the years that you spent very, very deeply and broadly working in this culture, what do you think that's about?
I think some of that can be traced back to our roots. Our roots are different than the rest of the state of Texas. We're kind of at an interesting point geographically. We're kind of where the Midwest meets the New Mexico Southwest, meets kind of Texas coming up this direction. And you look at the economic beginnings of the regions of the Panhandle. You get north of the Canadian River, there's a real strong Midwestern kind of influence. Those people, and Amarillo certainly, there was a Kansas City connection. We were rooted in that direction. Many of the early professional folks, lawyers, journalists, architects, were out of Kansas City. They didn't come from the South into Amarillo, up here. Largely the railroads coming from that direction,
the
cattle industry, and our relationship with the Kansas City market. When the wealthy people were building their homes and decorating their homes and their mansions, that many of them still exist. Unfortunately, some of them don't. They went to Kansas City for the decorators and to buy the furniture and the finishes for their homes. So there's a connection that way that the rest of the state of Texas doesn't have. Yet you get into the southeastern Texas Panhandle, the Donley counties, the Childress counties, the Collingsworth counties. That's the old cotton country from the south that migrated about this far north, and then you couldn't raise cotton any far north. And they had their own railroad, the Fort Worth and Denver Railroad, which became the Burlington, and then the Burlington Northern, and now the BNSF, that came from the Fort Worth area going to Denver. And then you have our connections toward eastern New Mexico. And that is reflected in some real infrastructure kinds of things. The way the electric grids come together now, we're not part of the Texas grid. We're not part of ERCOT. We're part of the Southwest Power Pool, which puts us interconnectivity-wise really closer to the grids in the east, on the East Coast. And then you get into New Mexico, and that's the Western power grid. So we're kind of where things have come together. I mean, there's a real independent streak amongst our folks. The kind of fortitude that it would take to settle this area. And we haven't been, and our youth, we have not been here very long. The Panhandle has been the Panhandle as we know it in terms of county jurisdictions and that map that we think of in our heads when we think of the Texas Panhandle just since the 1880s. That's only 140 years ago, but I'm 70 years old. I have spent half of the existence of the Texas Panhandle walking talking and
Yeah.
living in the Texas Panhandle.
Yeah.
And so we really haven't been here very long. We've gone through growth spurts. Our biggest growth period in the Panhandle, we've had two. We've really had two. One was in the 1920s with the coming of the oil and gas industry in a big way. And Amarillo boomed. If you just look at the architecture and the buildings in Amarillo, there were a lot of things that we consider iconic buildings now that were built in the 20s and the 30s, before the Depression and before the Dust Bowl set in and kind of flipped things on us for a while. And then our next growth period was in the 1950s. And post-World War II boom happening all over the country. Men coming home from war, getting families started. But here, irrigated agriculture came on in a big way, which began to fuel our economy in new and important ways and continues, obviously, to do so today. Amarillo grew, population-wise, more between, and I'm not talking about percentages, but I'm talking just gross numbers. We grew more between 1950 and 1960 than we grew from 1960 to 2020.
Wow.
The city of Amarillo's population doubled between 1950 and 60, from about 75 to 140,000 people or so. So we added 75 or 80,000 people during that one decade. And so we're at 200,000 now, which is about 60,000 more than where that peak was. I mean, the legitimate projections of the population in Amarillo back in the early 60s had us at 300,000 people by 1980. But circumstances, trials and tribulations take place.
And what are some of those?
Well,
what caused that slowdown?
For that slowdown in the early 60s, the closure of the Amarillo Air Force Base had a lot to do with it. Instantaneously, 20,000 people, both civilian and military, were pretty much gone. I mean, it took 2 or 3 years for that to happen. Great swaths, particularly of east and northeast Amarillo, had homes for sale, just for sale sign after for sale sign. That happened. Other things happened that were maybe a little bit more beyond anybody's control. The corporate world changed. There was downsizing and consolidation that took place in distribution and even in corporate headquarters. Amarillo was the corporate headquarters for a good handful of New York Stock Exchange traded companies. And things like Shamrock Oil and Gas Company, which is now morphed into Valero, which is now in San Antonio, used to be right here in downtown Amarillo. Pioneer Corporation, which is now Atmos, which is in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, was headquartered right here in downtown Amarillo. So was
it a centralization?
It was a centralization and consolidation in the corporate world.
Yeah.
And the desire, I think, of some of our local corporate entities to move to bigger markets to take advantage of growth opportunities that were there for them. So those things happened to us as well. And retail and distribution systems changed. Amarillo was very much a central distribution for everything from Fritos to refrigerators, And now that whole system has just changed across the country as to how we move goods and services and products and whatnot. And Lubbock became more of a regional distribution center because they could serve the Midland, the Permian Basin area and the Panhandle and the South Plains.
Which is booming at that time.
Which kind of drew some of that away. So there were a lot of changes that took place. And maybe we kind of lost some swagger in there somewhere. I've thought about that a lot. I have some concerns, I have to be honest, about the long-term viability of the Great High Plains from here all the way through Nebraska. Has the reason for us to be past us. A lot of the growth of Amarillo and the reason for Amarillo being here based upon finite resources, the oil and gas, the water. What's our next big thing? What is going to be the reason for us to be here and be a growing, vibrant community?
A lot of people think it's data centers.
Well, I will tell you it has to be intentional. We can't just sit back and let it happen. We have to be aggressive. That's why the AEDC kind of function is so important, I think. We have to get out there and be out. Maybe it is data centers. There are advantages and disadvantages, and, it will be interesting over the next decade to see where that bubble goes. We're not the only place
right
where that kind of thing is happening. But there are some real reasons that it makes sense here, and some reasons that it maybe doesn't make so much sense here. So we'll see how that all works. I have great hope for that, but kind of like the wind energy industry, which we're great for, those kind of industries don't always create a lot of jobs. So do they create wealth? Yes.
Yeah.
Do they create value? Yes. Would we want them headquartered here and doing those things here? Certainly we do. But in terms of big, huge job creators like irrigated ag is, I don't know. We'll see.
Well, and I think your perspective lends itself to understanding the importance of intentionality, that it's not a 3, 5, 10-year project, that it's, what are the very long-term implications on an area when you're bringing in a new industry, or perpetuating an existing one,
Exactly.
or looking at the kind of the trends and tides of a thing in that long-term lens. When you've actually seen that sort of long-term return on it.
We have to play the long game, and we're all impatient. We
Life is short.
We want the silver bullet solution, and we want it now. And there are very few circumstances of meaning where there is a silver bullet solution, or it can happen now. It's going to have to be long term. And so patience is a real virtue. And having goals and objectives and a plan and a vision, and keeping that vision in sight, and continuing to work together, and know that it's not just this project over here and that project over there. There has to be synergies between the things that we are doing to actually get us to the goal that we're striving toward. Economic growth is not, and I'm not an economic development professional. I've just watched some things, but it's not really a naturally occurring phenomenon out here in West Texas. Along the I-35 corridor, sure is. It kind of just happens. But out here, it goes back to that word, patience, focus, intentionality.
That's always, I think, a very interesting sentiment to try to really sit with. Is the idea that this has not been going on for all time here.
That's right.
Things looked very different here, in only 2 of your lifetimes.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's really not.
Boy, that's scary.
Yeah, and important to keep your foot on the gas, right? And be intentional about the work. If you're starting or growing a small business and need some cash, let me tell you about Amarillo Venture Capital. They are a Hey Amarillo sponsor. They're locally owned, and what makes them different is they don't just invest in businesses. They invest in people. Whether you need $5,000 or $50,000, they offer flexible, asset-based loans, often with funding in a week or less. And it's not just the money. They can connect you with their local network of legal, accounting, and business resources to help you succeed. Check them out at amarilloventurecapital.com. As you've noted, it's really hard to stay out of silos. And, for this group of people to be doing good work on this issue, and across town or in another county, there's another group of people doing really good work on this issue, and that work is really maximized by bringing everybody together around a table. And I know I'm assuming that you have learned how difficult that is to do it very well. What success factors can you kind of reflect on that helps people get at a table and move work together, or move work forward together?
Well, honestly, I think we have done comparatively pretty well at that. in terms of people, because of that Panhandle community we were talking about regionally, we come together pretty well and are open to those kinds of things. Our community colleges and WT, their relationship, it all goes back to relationships and knowing one another and respecting one another and realizing that, hey, I don't have all the answers, and maybe my colleagues in this other area of the Texas Panhandle area, not just geographically, but education, being aware of the business community and creating avenues and opportunities for people to come face to face and talk about things. And it does have, institutions like Amarillo, public institutions have to play a big role in that. Our educational institutions have to play a big role in that. And initiatives like some initiatives, they come and they flourish and they go, and that's okay. What Annette Carlisle did with Panhandle 2020 is a great example of bringing people together and looking at educational attainment levels and poverty and a lot of those things that Annette worked very hard on and that organization worked on. It was successful because those things became ingrained in people's heads when they went back to work to take on their primary area of responsibility. Hey, I have a role to play in dealing with poverty in the Texas Panhandle as an employer, for example. Those kinds of things. If we can ingrain these needs kind of in our collective mindset, we'll be able to work together even more successfully. I have been forever amazed talking to my colleagues over my 40-year careers with the people who do what I did across the state of Texas. I would hear horror stories about their major core city not getting along with the rural areas, and the rural areas being suspicious of the quote big city. Okay. And we've had very, very little of that up here, and it blessed me from a career standpoint because I didn't have to deal with that. And I could deal with the true sense of regionalism and working together and just doing what's right by the people.
What do you have your eye on right now on issues that the Panhandle are facing into the next 40 years? I know I believe you retired in 2017, so you are no longer the executive director of the PRPC, but I would imagine you don't just totally kind of put that expertise up on a shelf and go garden or something. Yeah, so what do you have your eye on? I mean, you've mentioned water, of course, some of those things.
Yeah, and water is really a big deal.
It's really it, right?
It really is a big deal for us. We did water planning work at the Planning Commission. So we traditionally struggle with how do we explain the magnitude of the water issue for the people of the Panhandle. And again, we're different than other parts of the state as it relates to the water issue. Our water is primarily groundwater, both for municipal, industrial, and ag purposes. For other parts of the state, there's a lot of surface water that plays into things that are renewable resources. So we're a little bit different there. So we're taking our water from a finite resource. The good Lord put that water down there a long time ago, and we are taking a lot of it out pretty quickly. Portions of the Ogallala Aquifer, from a practical standpoint, have already been practically dewatered. We've grown, we've morphed because of that resource into, growing a lot of corn up here. Corn takes a lot of water, And over 90% of our water that we use in the Panhandle is for irrigated ag purpose. But it's a big part of our economy. It drives the economy.
Rightfully so.
Just like any water that we would use for AI or data center or power generation would use water. But that's in order to drive the economy. I just think with water, we have to understand it's finite. So we have to treat it like a precious resource and do everything that we can to make the best use of every drop. Are we going to cause that aquifer to be there forever? Probably not. We have to be smart with it for as long as we have it. And we'll use it as a resource, and we should, just like any other resource. I won't argue that whatsoever. We just need to be smart with it. Back to the quantity of water. Jared Atkinson, who was my water planner at the Planning Commission, who's now the city manager in Lubbock, came up with this analogy. We were talking, okay, how do we explain the magnitude of the water that we use in the Panhandle? And he did some math, and in the Texas Panhandle, in any typical year, and we think about high school football, so we know the size of a football field, right? So if you could stack water on a football field, and if you would stack 1 year's worth of water consumption for all purposes in a stack, that stack would be 360 miles high on that football field. Can you imagine a stack of water sitting on a football field and looking up, and it's 360 miles? Or if you laid it on its side, it would stretch from here to Dallas. That's 1 year's worth, and that's coming mostly from groundwater.
Yeah. And that was for the entire Panhandle, you said?
That was actually for 21 counties. The water planning area geographically had 21 counties.
So not all, but a good amount.
So most of the Texas Panhandle, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's noteworthy to help people like really understand the finite nature of the resource. Like I think, right now and always probably as it should, water's a big topic, and, people are saying that, but I think there's a difference whenever you can visualize a football field's worth line from here to Dallas, and to help or empower our leaders, both civic and business, to have that image in their head, as you said, when they're making decisions on every drop.
Yeah, we all need to be educated as it relates, and continue to be educated. I mean, the groundwater districts up here do a good job with their educational programs. Our elected officials are becoming more and more educated as time goes by, and as particular opportunities present themselves.
Right. Yeah, in a hurry.
In a hurry, they become educated to those kind of things, and they want, and we all want, good, prudent, solid decisions to be made. But there are a lot of things to balance, in those decisions.
Yeah. What are other concerns that you see, or just like looking into the future for the Texas Panhandle?
Well, I mean, the old thing about keeping our talent here continues to be kind of a bugaboo for us. Keeping that next generation here and productive is an issue. I think our fiscal conservatism, which is good in a lot of respects, has also been a bit of a negative for us in terms of, on the public side in particular, in terms of our adversity to invest in quality of life. And I call it community livability kinds of things, attributes that people today want in their communities when they look at a community to move to. We have not kept up, in my opinion, in that regard, because we have been a little bit stingy, again, from my perspective, in making those kind of investments.
Yeah, just not voting for tax increases and bond packages.
The last park bond package that was passed in Amarillo was when I was at Amarillo High School. When Amarillo High School was at this spot in 1973. So, there are those kind of things that we need to get engaged in. We have debated a 10,000 seat Coliseum in Amarillo since 1938. Literally, I can show you a headline from a Sunday edition of an Amarillo paper. Above the fold, a beautiful artist rendering of an Art Deco 10,000 seat arena that the community was proposing in 1938.
Wow.
And here we are you know. Almost 100
Wringing
years
our
later,
hands about the
and
Civic Center.
we're still dealing with, and we haven't gotten that 10,000 seat arena yet. And if one of the things that I do for entertainment, much to my spouse's dismay, is there's a great, I'm sure you're aware of it, there's a great website out there called newspaperarchives.com. And they have digitized newspapers from around the country, complete editions of newspapers. There's a great collection in there of all the Amarillo papers. And it's searchable by keyword and whatnot. And I'll just sit down and start reading a newspaper from 50 years ago or 60 years ago. And I find that so fascinating. And then, 2 hours later, she's asleep on the recliner, and I'm still, looking at Amarillo from 1948 and what was going on then.
I think it's fair to note or to wonder what Amarillo would look like today had the precedent been set in 1938 that we vote for funding a 10,000 person Coliseum.
Yeah.
You referenced the park bond, and in the next few months, council will decide if they're going to close some pools, some city pools in our city, because they're 65, 70 years old.
Built with some of that 73 bond money.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure the timeline aligns perfectly. And I think it is our community's reticence to vote for funding measures, which then indicate to our elected officials a reticence to fund. They're I think most often acting in their best representation of the will of the people, but it is that cultural sentiment, maybe of what's the word I'm thinking, like a lesser mentality or a scarcity mentality. I think maybe
we can do it's just fine the way things are, kind of thing.
Yeah,
we can get by. We're doing fine, kind of thing. And you can take good things to the extreme, and in regard to investing in those kind of things, community livability kind of things, I think we've kind of gotten carried away. It's interesting to read the timelines, and you can do that in those old newspapers of that 1938 discussion. We were gung ho. They wanted to build it primarily so that we would have a facility for the Amarillo Stock Show to be as big and massive and every bit what Houston was doing and Fort Worth was doing. We were pretty much, there were comparability. We were closer in population, not to Houston so much, but Fort Worth. And, Austin was not much bigger than Amarillo in 1960 even. And
wow.
that's what we wanted to, we aspired to that. That's what drove that 10,000 seat thing, because that was their primary need that they saw for that. And then how do we pay for it? And so, the Work Progress Administration was kind of coming to an end at that time. So let's go to our congressman and let's get the feds to pay for it. Well, that didn't exactly pan out because those dollars were drying up at the time. So, let's find some other way to pay for it. They never got around to asking for a bond issue, for that example.
Yeah.
And then you watch. Again, interestingly enough, the Coliseum that got built was about 20 years later when the old fairgrounds arena was put in place out at the fairgrounds, which was the Coliseum before our current Civic Center Coliseum, if you will. And interesting stories to how that, I can talk all day about all these weird nuances in our history. But in the 50s, the newspaper in particular was hammering on our local leadership. Lubbock was about to build a new Coliseum. And it's like, guys, we've been talking about this Coliseum thing for 20 years at that point. We haven't done anything. People are making investments elsewhere. If we're not careful, and this is actually in the newspaper I read, Lubbock may end up being bigger than Amarillo. They scratched their heads more. First, they went down to Austin and got a piece of legislation passed that allowed the counties to use some of the road and bridge money to build a civic center. Go figure how that worked. But they came back here, and the Potter County Commissioners Court said, well, we don't generate enough revenue in that fund to even come close to doing that. That's not the solution. So we struggled, and we formed committees, and blue ribbon task forces with, the leadership of the community to study this, and it never got anywhere. Newspaper was hammering on them in the 50s. So the Dalhart Army Airfield had closed after World War II, and there were two big old hangars up there. So the Commissioner's Court said, oh, maybe there's an opportunity for us. So they went to Dalhart and finagled the deal and bought those two Air Force hangars and moved them to Amarillo, glued them together effectively, and that became the Tri-State Fairgrounds Coliseum, where I went to ice shows, fair concerts, graduations, up until the Civic Center was built and opened in 1968, I believe. But, and you read through their trials and tribulations with that old building out there. Funny. First of all, they kind of the unions were pretty strong in Amarillo about that time. I didn't know that about our history, but they were. And they used non-union labor to stick those two buildings together. So they caught some heat with that politically. And then the firm that they used to actually move those barns to Amarillo happened to be a firm that was owned by a city commissioner at the time. Yep. So we got all concerned about that. Then we got it together and we decided, well, okay, we're going to have to put some seats in there, aren't we? So then they go about they found some used seats somewhere and installed it. And then wintertime set in and it's kind of cold in here. How are we going to heat this place? And so they managed to heat it. And we're going to need some restrooms, So, it's just that we get by sometimes instead of actually,
passing a dang bond
just
and
doing
build
it
a
and do the best. There are lessons to be learned.
Sure.
About not being timid, about being bold, strong-willed, and good, strong leadership that can overcome the inevitable naysayers that are going to be out there for just about anything. I've always said, this is not true, but I've always said, if somebody could come up with the ultimate cure for cancer, there would be people that would say, well, I just don't know that I'm for that. My granddaddy died of cancer, my daddy died of cancer, and by God, it's good enough for me to die of cancer. So there's just an element of that everywhere, and we have that element.
Said by a man who spent 40 plus years working in public service. I think you feel that deeply. Does your marketing feel like a shot in the dark? Are your social media posts getting lost in the scroll? Unlock your business's potential with SKP Creative. They know your audience and design posts that reflect your brand and drive real engagement. From scroll-stopping social media content to powerful traditional marketing, graphic design, and website development, SKP Creative covers it all. Are you ready to elevate your feed and turn your marketing into a success story? Visit skpcreative.com today. I'm back with Gary Pitner. Gary, this is the part of the show we like to call 8 Straight. I've got 8 fast ones for you. You ready?
The lightning round, right?
Yes, that's right.
Is what you call it.
When you think of Amarillo 10 years from now, Gary, what do you hope for?
Well, I think like all of us, I hope for a vibrant, thriving, diverse, growing city. Hopefully, and this kind of relates to what we talked about earlier, with ever-growing opportunities to advance the kind of livability piece in our community. So, I want us to reach our full potential. There is great potential, but we have to work at it, and we have to be intentional about it, and we have to get along with each other.
Oh, yeah. It does take teamwork.
It does take teamwork.
Other than wind, what does this area have too much of?
Well, first of all, speaking to the wind, although we cuss the wind and whatnot, it's weird when you go to places where the wind's not blowing. Our kid went to, he didn't go very far to school. He went to TCU down in Fort Worth. But when he came home for Christmas, that first year. It's, well, Colin, what do you miss of the Panhandle? Being in the Panhandle in Amarillo. He says, Dad, you're not going to believe this, but I kind of miss the wind. You know, it kind of cools you off, and when it's 100 degrees in Fort Worth, it's 100 degrees and the humidity's high and the wind's not blowing.
Yep.
You know, so the wind's not necessarily all bad, but what we have too much of right now in our society, I think, and it's not just Amarillo, but we have too many complainers on social media. How's that for a negative? And we have those too. It's just so counterproductive. And if that energy could be, you know, transferred into a positive dialogue about things, we'd be a whole lot better off. So I guess that's the thing I hope, you know, that we would be right up there next to wind if wind's a negative.
I agree with that. My work in advocacy, when I'm talking about it, I say, okay, take that Facebook opinion and let's put it to work, please.
Exactly.
It's not bad to feel strongly enough about something to have an opinion.
Right. Well, you know, and
it's do something with it.
And it's like, they should do this, and they should do that. It's always they. Well, there are no theys out there. It's you and me. It's
your hat in the ring.
Yeah, run for office.
Yeah.
You know, volunteer, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. What do we not have enough of?
Well, one of the things I'm doing now is I'm on the board of the Northwest Texas Hospital, and so kind of pay attention to that. And Amarillo's, you know, is such a hub for medical care for this region. That's one of the things that's in our future in a big way, is to continue to grow that piece of our resource base here in Amarillo. But we need, we're short some specialty areas in healthcare, and my opinion would be that some of the quality of life issues that we have not addressed makes it really hard to recruit professionals.
Yeah.
Educational professionals, medical professionals to this market. And we need to pay attention to that and try to find ways to do a better job of, you know, I have two brothers living in Lubbock. I love the South Plains. It's a great place. But you know, I'd rather not our folks have to drive to Lubbock for their health care or to Dallas or wherever they're having to go. We need to further advance what we have out there at the medical center.
Yeah, I think the issue is not only who are we losing, but who are we not attracting.
Exactly. Yeah, you know, you see people withdraw at the last minute for CEO jobs and college president jobs and, you know, city manager jobs and, you know, those kind of things. And sometimes it's, you know, when the spouse comes up with the professional and it's like, oh man, what are my opportunities here? This is not the prettiest place in the world. It has to grow on you a little bit from the environmental side of the place. But I think there are things that we can do, and that goes back to that intentionality and being aware, acknowledging reality that we do have some things to overcome to become a more attractive market.
What's your favorite local building?
I'm a downtown nut.
Polk Street.
Polk Street. I have a lot of history with downtown Amarillo and Center City and downtown Amarillo Inc. and DAI and the ballpark and the Embassy Suites Hotel and the parking garage and downtown urban design standards and all those things were a big part of my life for a number of years. So the built environment is important. A lot of us, I don't think, are aware of the built-in. We're aware that we're in a place that we're enjoying, but we're not necessarily aware that, hey, this is a pretty cool environment that I'm in, and that's why I'm enjoying this place. So it's number one, the built environment is important, and I like
the built environment. Explain what you mean when you say that.
When I say built environment, I'm talking about the buildings, the structures, the landscaping, the environment in which we move around and work.
So the invested in area,
the invested in area as built environment.
Okay.
I like the quirky stuff in Amarillo, certainly. The beef burger barrel is cool to me. things like the Trailways Bus Depot, which is just north of the WT campus downtown.
Yeah.
Not the Greyhound Depot at 10th and Taylor, but
Right.
the Trailways Depot won all sorts of architectural awards when it was built. Would you believe that?
No, I didn't
And the
know.
reason for that, on the north side where the buses would pull in, there is a sawtooth arrangement that allowed the buses to pull in. That was the brainchild of the guy that had the Trailways bus system here in Amarillo. And he figured out that I can drive my buses in, park right next to the building. They can walk right off the bus into the building, out of the rain and all that, and the bus can back right up. So that sawtooth thing won architectural awards for an innovation in a transportation facility. So weird little things like that. I'm fascinated in. I like the office building the Planning Commission adaptively reused. Bought a building in 1993 that was built late 50s, early 60s as Amarillo Savings and Loan Association. And it has this real weird, funky sunscreen exterior on it, a tiled exterior that was there for a purpose to help with heating and cooling of the building. It shaded the building and allowed air to pass through before you got to the glass facade. We called it called it the food grader building because it looks like food grates. It looks like a food grader on the outside. But that's another. That's a quirky building. But certainly, I love the icon. I love the guy Carlander, the architect, who was a Kansas guy. We were talking about Kansas people coming this direction. Was an architect that did the Fisk building, did what I call the White and Kurt building, which is now an Amarillo National Facility there at 6th and the Polk, about a 4-story. It was built as a 4-story department store, light white brick with some really neat Art Deco flourishes in the building. He designed Alice Landergan's school here. He designed Margaret Will's school here. He's just got designs everywhere. So I like his buildings. So I love the Santa Fe building.
Yeah.
I love the opportunity when my organization was part of renovating that building to kind of get up on the roof and watch them take down those big red letters and rehab those letters and get them back on the top of the building. I love the neon that we have brought some back in Amarillo. Unfortunately we've torn down a lot of neat stuff. So we need to be cognizant. We tore down a beautiful little Rock Island Railroad depot on North Polk that was a real shame that went. So I mean, there are examples of us doing good things in the adaptive reuse of buildings. We mentioned the WT campus here in downtown, which started as the department store, the Fedway department store in the 50s. My mom bought our Sunday clothes as kids there before we went to church on Sunday mornings. That's where we went shopping. Then it became the department store. The adaptive reuse of these things is what's so cool. It ceased to be a department store, and Glenn Parkey, a local developer, and others developed that into a very successful multi-tenant office building for a period of time. Then that use kind of waned, and WT purchased the building and renovated it in a beautiful way, and it's such an asset to downtown Amarillo. So there are a lot of I could go on with examples. The east side of Polk Street between 10th and 11th, where we largely have that full block in place, but for the family support services piece that burned a couple of years ago, right at 10th and Polk. We used to put our auto dealerships in downtowns. And the showroom floor was on the first floor. The mechanics were on the third floor.
How interesting.
And the offices were on the second floor. They had huge freight elevators that would carry your sick car up to the third floor and worked on it. So the car dealers built in that block. The Dodge folks had a building. A guy named Tony Chisholm was a local. He had a Hudson dealership there. Built that gorgeous building that is there at 11th and Polk. And then after the car dealerships moved, Plain Chevrolet was there for a period of time. When the car dealerships moved out, the furniture companies in town figured out that those were great buildings for them because of the elevators and the way they were structured. They could hold furniture. Yeah. So Heath Furniture moved into those, and Southern Furniture moved into those. And they have since been reconfigured for, we've got some downtown living taking place there. It's
Yeah.
some real cool office space.
I think it's really much neater when you're able to repurpose than
It is.
tear the thing down.
It is.
Yeah.
There's a vibe there.
Right.
That is really cool. And people appreciate that,
and a good opportunity.
that vibe. And, what's happened with the Barfield building, that was really a struggle to get done for many, many years. And I have high hopes for the Herring,
Yeah.
I really, and then the Rural building at Third and Polk, which used to be the corporate headquarters of Southwestern Public Service Company across the street from the Amarillo building. So we've still got plenty of old buildings that we could do some beautiful things with, along with the warehouse district over by the new city hall.
Yeah.
So a lot of cool buildings.
There are. What's your favorite local restaurant?
Oh, I narrowed it down to two for you.
Okay.
La Frontera. I feel so much at home. We moved when I retired. We moved away. We thought we wanted to move away, and we did. And then we realized our built what we thought was going to be our forever retirement home down close to the Metroplex, and got down there and lived down there for 4 or 5 years, and decided, our roots are too deep in the Panhandle. So we came back. We came back home. That La Frontera was one of those places where when we came back, and we went there for the first time after we moved back. Now we're home.
Oh, well, that's perfect.
This is home. And Delvin's, I am a real sucker for their sweet potato casserole. Really more as a dessert than as a veggie on my plate, or as a starch on my plate.
Yeah.
But those are my two favorites.
They're good picks. How do you describe Amarillo to people outside the area?
Well, I kind of describe it differently depending upon where from outside the area. If they're elsewhere in the country, number one, Texas is a big place. And so everybody has this same notion about Texas generically. And we're not. We're, like we'd like to say and have said for years, we're kind of the real Texas. I don't know how much truth there is to that, but so I
go with it. I also say that sometimes.
First of all, I explained to them that we're in the far northwest corner of the state, and that we're closer to the 5 other state capitals than we are Austin, Texas. And I'm actually as close in Amarillo to Denver, Colorado, as I am Dallas, Texas. And it snows in the Panhandle.
Yeah.
We have 4 distinct seasons, and people think it's always hot in Texas, and it never snows in Texas. And it's like, although I sold it when I retired, it's like, I even own a snowblower, those kind of things. And, we sit up here at a relatively high elevation. And then so geographically, climate-wise, that's who we are. So I describe us that way. And I describe the independence, and I describe the civility of our people, our willingness to work together and come together as a region.
What's the most underrated aspect of living here?
We're a big, small town. Going back to what we were talking about, knowing each other, I think, is underrated. I think we can use more about that. And the things that we move back for, that being able to run into somebody, you can't go anywhere without running into people. That can be a negative, I know, in some people's mind, but it's really comforting. Even knowing what plumber to call, or when you need a key made, to go to the Ace Lock and Key there at the intersection of 10th and Georgia, that kind of thing. Those kind of aspects of our living, I think, are underrated.
Yeah. When was the last time you went to Palo Duro Canyon?
Well, I had to think hard about that. I think it was about 3 years ago. My son married a beautiful young lady. They're both over in Oklahoma. They both work for the University of Oklahoma. She's Persian, grew up in Wichita Falls, obviously an American citizen, but she's Persian. She came to, when she met Colin, one of the first things we did after their marriage was we took them both, of course Colin had been there, but we took her to see Palo Duro Canyon. And I've witnessed this before in terms of convention trips and whatnot, where you take a busload of people to the canyon and they see the canyon, and they're surprised, number one. It's just kind of out of nowhere, and it is. It's flat, 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 flat,
Shocking.
flat, flat, and then boom, there's this beautiful canyon there. So the last time was about 3 years ago, I think, when we took Yasmin to Palo Duro Canyon. It's been a great day in the canyon.
Nice. That concludes the 8 straight questions. Gary, I like to end by asking my guests to endorse something.
Oh, a promo.
Yes, that's
a promo
right.
opportunity. Okay. Well, I have one for you.
I'll take it.
You knew I would, didn't you? I have one for you. One of my things over the past 5 years, even while we were away before our return to home, been working with the group to develop a first responders memorial in downtown Amarillo. There's a group of 4 or 5 of us. I won't go through how all that evolved and how all that happened, but we have lost in the Panhandle, going back to our Panhandle roots, since our beginnings in the 1880s, we have lost 104 local firefighters, law enforcement officers, and peace officers in the line of duty while serving their neighbors in the Texas Panhandle. And we're only 140 years old, so we can still remember those people and tell their stories. So we are in the midst of raising funds for the Texas Panhandle First Responders Memorial to be built on, of course, Polk Street at the corner of 11th and Polk, just south of what we now know as the Chamber of Commerce building on the little pocket park area.
Yeah.
It's a $1 million project. We are over 90% there. And so if someone would like to write me a $100,000 check, we'll be done with it and we'll get on with groundbreaking. But we feel really good about that. We, in addition to the monument itself, which we want it to be a piece of art for downtown, in addition to another piece of downtown redevelopment. The urban design standards will be implemented in the areas facing both 11th Street and Polk Street, in addition to the monument. It's going to be a real asset, really a contemplative place in our town, quiet place, which is kind of good for something like this. At the top of the hour, you can hear the church bells ringing. So I look forward to getting that project done. And so I'm here this morning to promote the Texas Panhandle First Responders.
Yeah, I know y'all are close. My family and I ate at McDonald's last night.
Yes, you've already contributed.
Which my children were shocked, because while I love the local people that own and work for the McDonald's, I am not a personal fan. My kids were shocked when I told them that we were eating McDonald's, because a portion of the proceeds went to the Panhandle First Responders Memorial. I hope that, Gary, soon, this episode's going to release here in just like next week. I hope that soon people will be listening to this and we can direct them to go visit it.
We fully expect the groundbreaking to happen in short order.
It will be a beautiful place, and I'm glad it got moved over there.
Yeah, it turned out to be a great spot.
Yeah.
It's really, again, that contemplative spot, that church bell spot. It's a historic piece of ground on Polk Street. All of our ground on Polk Street is historic. So, looking forward to making that a reality. And not only will the names be inscribed in there forever, but there will be a website. We want to tell the story. We want to tell the story of those people. So we can go to the website, read about the story. There'll be an audio version. You can listen to the audio version. But just before we leave that, and just some of the things, Panhandle history and things that we don't know about in the tragic arena investigations for that First Responders Memorial.
And I think,
and we need to remember those.
The stories. That's right.
Yeah.
Gary, thank you so much.
Thank you. Enjoyed it. It was fun.
Yeah. Good. Get ready for unforgettable music from the Amarillo Symphony. On November 21st and 22nd, they'll take you on a cosmic journey with Holst's The Planets, featuring singers from West Texas A&M. Then celebrate the season at the beloved Happy Holiday Pops concerts. That's December 19th and 20th, and featuring special guest Annika Spalding from the Little Theater. These festive performances are the perfect way to ring in the holidays with your favorite seasonal music and joyful entertainment. Whether you're drawn to epic orchestral masterworks or holiday favorites, there's an exciting experience waiting for you. Don't miss a single note. Visit AmarilloSymphony.org for your tickets today. And that concludes the episode. Thanks to Gary for the interview. thanks to Venture Capital, SKP Creative, and the Amarillo Symphony for supporting this episode, and to Angelina Marie for editing every week. And thank you for listening. This has been episode 425 of Hey Amarillo. I'm Skylar Gallup, and we'll see you next week.